afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. Thank you all very much for coming. So it's great to be here today, and this is a day I'm confident will be long remembered by parents and school board officials across Alberta. Those of you who were with me or near me over the course of the summer would have known that I often began by pointing out that in the family I was raised in, two things were non-negotiable. One was hard work, and the other was education. And so I guess it shouldn't be a surprise that in any government I leave, those are amongst the things that are non-negotiable, hard work and education in schools. Over the course of the time since, I've traveled across the province. I've spoken with thousands of Albertans. And one thing that was raised again and again in community after community was the importance of our children's education and the need for more schools and classrooms to support students and their teachers. And what I heard everywhere I went from Albertans was that they wanted this to be a priority and that it was a time for action, it was time for a government to be decisive and basically to get on with it. And so I'm today proud to announce that our government will be delivering on transformative change in terms of the way that we plan, the way that we build, and the way that we report on the progress in the construction of school infrastructure in our province. And we are essentially reporting today, embarking today on the most expansive infrastructure commitment that we have seen really in Alberta history. And I think clearly one of the most important. This all begins really with population growth. You know, we are a province that has grown from roughly 3.7 million people in 2010, headed to somewhere in the neighborhood of 4.7 million people by 2020. Essentially, population growth of close to 1 million people in this province over the course of 10 years. The consequential increases in student population are immense. Edmonton and Calgary, in particular, are facing a circumstance where there will be a need to accommodate 5,000 new students each year in each city over the course of the next 7 years. There are other ways to calibrate these statistics, but this is essentially about the population growth that we're facing in a province that has a hot economy and that is drawing young families here to take advantage of that economic prosperity. And because I think as well of our quality of life and because of the incredible opportunities that we have here, including those for our children who are able to benefit from one of the world's best and most respected education systems. And so as a government, we need to plan better for this significant growth. We need to have a clearer mechanism to report, and we need to have a manner in which to hold people accountable. We can't merely content ourselves with catching up to current demand. We have to need to be going where that demand is going to be, and we're going to have to be accountable to the commitments that are made. And so today's announcement then demonstrates that my government is committed to the education of our children in Alberta. Really, what this amounts to, ladies and gentlemen, is that over the course of the next 5 years, the Alberta government will be completing the delivery of 230 capital projects in terms of school construction across this province. The best way, I think, to encapsulate this is to essentially break it into 3 phases, if you will. The first phase was really consisted of the announcements that were made in 2011, consisting of 35 school projects. Of those 35 school projects, 31 of them have been opened, are in the process of being opened for students in the fall of this year. That's phase 1. Phase 2 consists of the 50 new schools and 70 modernizations, which are due to be completed in 2016 and 2017. And we can speak to those. These schools are well in hand, and we're moving through the design, tendering, and construction process. Minister Buehler can report on that. Phase 3, which we are speaking to today specifically as well, involves 55 new schools and 20 modernizations. And Mr. Dirks will speak to this because we are allocating the resources today to begin the process. for the construction of those 55 new schools and 20 modernizations. All of this flows from the population increases that we've had in our province and the need to plan for new schools and enhance school capacity and have action now, not at some future time. And that's why we're going to start today to do things differently. Minister Dirks will speak of the $43.2 million which are being allocated for the planning and the design of the 55 new schools and the modernization and expansions of 20 others. And the intent is by providing school boards with funding that allows them to begin longer-term infrastructure planning, we will be able, firstly, to have certainty for parents. We will also be able to get students into the classrooms up to a year sooner and potentially save millions of dollars. Now, this government has in the past been criticized for not meeting timelines to get new schools built. Schools cannot be built instantly. Phase 1, the 35 schools that were announced in 2011, as I said, 31 of those essentially are open. There are 4 with very good reasons as to where they are in the construction process at this point. 2 of them will be open shortly. One of them faced unanticipated site constrictions, and the other is a circumstance relating to the flooding that we had in our city. What we are doing, Cabinet has met, we've considered this. We have struck a Cabinet committee which will be in charge with this as we move forward, consisting of Minister Dirk, Minister McQueen, Minister Buehler, and Minister Johnson, who will work with school boards and with municipalities to streamline the building process to ensure that we deliver on all 230 of these projects and ensure that they are built of suitable quality and that they are built on time and on budget, and to make sure that we don't encounter unanticipated roadblocks in terms of getting students into classrooms. In addition, over the course of the summer, I promised transparency. And so there will be a complete transparency in terms of the process that we are following. You will have in hand, I think, some of you, a copy of the basically the school program status sheet, which will identify the status of each of these 230 projects in terms of where they are, so that citizens can go online and identify where the school is located, what the anticipated capacity of the school is, and where it's going to be built and when. Because all of Alberta's children deserve that we get on with this, and their parents deserve that we have transparency in terms of timing. So these then are the values that I grew up with, and they'll continue to be the values that guide Minister Dirks, Minister Buehler, and myself in terms of our commitment to education in this province. And with the announcements today consisting in total of $232 million, what I've described as Phase 3, we will continue with the building, the modernization, and the planning for new schools so that Alberta continues to have one of the best education systems in this country, and so that the future of our children is secure. So I'm going to, at this point, I'd like to thank the school representatives who are in attendance. Thank you very much for meeting with us. I know that this responds in part to some of the concerns that you have had about the planning process. And I'm going to ask Minister Dirks and Minister Buehler to speak to the specifics of the announcement. And I'm going to ask that they continue to devote their time and their attention to this important file. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you, Premier. This is a very special day for education, public education in our great province of Alberta. And I do want to welcome all of our education partners, our school board chairs, our superintendents, and others who may be in the rooms across the province who are listening in on this press conference today. We welcome you. As a former teacher and a principal, school trustee, and board chair, and parent, I know how vital education is to strong families and to strong communities, and how vital it is to the future of our great province. As Education Minister, I'm committed to ensuring that all of Alberta's students have access to the best places to learn. This is vital. We are committed to this. Families in Alberta's fast-growing communities often face the challenges of crowded classrooms and busing their kids to faraway schools. And that's why addressing the shortage of schools in Alberta is an essential part, a key part of our government's plan for education going forward. And it's a vital investment in Alberta's future. Today's announcement, simply put, is going to help more children go to school close to their homes, in their neighborhoods. And that's what parents have been telling us. I've been hearing this over and over again over the years and recently. We want to benefit the kids, their parents, and the local school districts. So there are numerous new schools that are being announced today, numerous modernizations, in addition to significant infrastructure maintenance and renewal money, which is going to benefit all boards across the province. $100 million is being allocated to this in addition to this year's allocation over a 2-year period of time. And there are about 30 to 40 school boards in that range that are going to get new schools and significant numbers of modernizations as well. In addition to our large metro boards, our 4 of them in Calgary and Edmonton, Rocky View, Grand Prairie Catholic, Grand Prairie Public, Parkland, St. Albert Public, Peace Wapiti, the list goes on and on. We will be providing modular classrooms in a number of situations to help address Alberta's school districts deal with enrollment pressures. I know Rocky View has some very significant pressures, which we are going to be addressing immediately as well. These will help to reduce class sizes as we bring more spaces on. And I should just talk about the number of spaces. The 3 phases that the Premier talked about, the first phase was, there was a lot of replacement schools in there, so we weren't adding a large number of new spaces. I think there were about 8635 added. In the 50 new schools and the 70 modernizations, there are 38,000 new spaces that are coming on. And in this 55 new school announcement and the 20 modernizations, there are 35,000 new spaces coming on for a total of well in excess of 70,000 spaces. We're also going to be, as I said, funding Airdrie's situation, their starter school in Heron's Crossing as well. So today's announcement is an important step towards addressing the pressures of growth that the Premier underscored in our province. Our government's commitment to plan and rationally design and work in partnership with our key stakeholders with these 55 new and expanded schools and 20 modernizations. This is a major step forward to address our growth pressures in the years to come. So I look forward to working with our school board representatives. I had the opportunity to connect with the Public School Board Association late this morning. We value them as our partners. We value all districts as our partners. We value our teachers and our parents as our partners. We're all in this together, and this is our sign as a government that we are moving forward under the leadership of our new Premier. And it's a pleasure for me to work with Minister Buehler, who is doing a wonderful job on the nuts and bolts side, the infrastructure side of helping to make all of this happen. And so I'm honored to introduce him to our group today.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's indeed a pleasure to be here this afternoon at this very historic announcement. As the Premier noted, Alberta is growing. Nearly 300 people are moving here every single day to raise their families, but I bet you not one of them is bringing a school in their backpack. We have to move swiftly in order to meet the needs of today and the growth of tomorrow. And today we are not only announcing the largest capital build in our province's education history, We're also releasing a status update on the projects that are underway, a commitment that our Premier has made. This is an initial status update. There'll be more comprehensive ones coming. This update shows the progress we have made and we are continuing to make on building and modernizing schools. The update goes back to 2011 and includes all the new schools and modifications that are completed or in progress. We are completely committed to seeing these projects through to completion as soon as possible. So today's report provides an update on where we are and where we are going. We want to expand on this in the months ahead, as I had mentioned. As the Premier has mentioned, 35 new schools and modernizations were promised in 2011. As of this year, 31 are complete. The other 4 are nearing completion. In addition of the schools that were announced in 2013, a number of them are in early phases of construction, and nearly 60 will be going out to tender by the end of this school year. Since my appointment, the Premier has made it very clear he wants our schools as our foremost priority. Our mission is to get students into new classrooms as soon as possible. Now, it must be remembered that it can take 3 to 4 years to build a school, 3.5 to 4.5 years to build a school. I am tasked with finding innovations to see how we can make this happen quicker. That's why we are starting the planning on the 55 new schools and the 20 modernizations now. We're not waiting until next spring. We're beginning the planning now to save time and potentially have children in classrooms almost 1 year sooner. I'm looking for other ways that we can streamline the process. For example, school boards, when they are delivering a school project, have to work very closely and seek certain approvals from the province. I've asked my department to go through that process, see where we can find efficiencies so we can continue to have oversight, but we can get out of the way so people can get results. We're also working with the Cabinet Committee that the Premier spoke about to ensure that we can work with our municipal partners to speed up the development permit process. We're looking for a number of efficiencies, and we won't be able to do it alone. Working with our school partners, working with our municipalities, we can find efficiencies to narrow that period of time, that year to year and a half that it takes in planning, in development permit processes, to make sure we can get students in classrooms quicker. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, and I believe we'll now take questions.
Thank you. So we'll keep the questions at the beginning of this to this announcement. We'll take a few from the floor and then go to the phones.
Premier, will these be direct builds or is P3 an option?
The Cabinet Committee has been given the flexibility to consider design builds, to consider P3s, to consider innovative partnerships, to consider any one of 4 possible ways to construct these projects. The intent is to have a Cabinet Committee that's very focused on execution. And I mean, this is a massive undertaking to build this sort of school infrastructure essentially over a decade, starting in 2010. And so the committee needs to have the flexibility to engage in creative ways and innovative ways and to mix and match in terms of the approach we follow.
Premier, on the costs here, what you're talking about both on the update and the new bill that you're talking about.
Right.
For the 2016, the schools that for the most part you're saying will be in place by 2016.
Right.
Are you going to be within the original budget that was put forward on them, or are you going to be, or is the government going to be paying a premium to get those built? And secondly, what is the ability of the government? What is the budget on the new builds, and what is there going to be pressure given the massive construction that's going on that could lead to cost overruns? How are you going to ensure that there are not
Right.
cost overruns?
Well, the committee will monitor all that firstly. So let's talk about the process. There is a committee that will be in place to monitor that, and I believe it's important that we have full transparency for Albertans. That's why we will have this inventory posted, and it will contain ongoing information about whether we are on schedule and whether we're on budget. At this point in time, it's anticipated that we'll be able to live up to the budget parameters that were put in place originally. You know, but let's recognize this may be the largest build-out of school infrastructure that's ever been undertaken in the country. You're talking about 230 new schools or large modernizations completed essentially in the time between 2010 and 2020. And so, you know, recognize the complexities of this, and you know, we anticipate that it will be we'll be able to complete on budget and in a timely way.
Premier, in regards to the space that's needed into this announcement, I'm just wondering if we can talk about the 45 modulars still sitting out in Crossfield and when you guys hope to move those.
I'll let Minister Buehler speak to the modulars.
We're looking at a variety of options to get children in classrooms as soon as possible. We work very closely with our school board partners and our municipal partners. Constructing of modules is one aspect of getting a modular ready for students. So the construction is one aspect. Other aspects are making sure the site is ready for it, making sure that the development permits are in place. In some cases, there needs to be work done on specific sites. So that's a wide range of things that need to come into place to ensure that we have modulars ready for students as soon as possible. Every single year, the Government of Alberta essentially goes out and does an ask of modulars. I want to see how we can better streamline that process so that we can get the order of modulars in sooner, so that we can begin the site testing, the site development, site preparation work ready to go sooner, and so that we can work with our municipal partners to get the development permits done sooner. In some cases, it can take up to 6 to 8 months for development permits alone. So these are all pieces that need improvement, and that's exactly what we are set out to do.
Operator, can you please put the first caller through?
Our first question comes from General Evans from AM 610 News. Your line is open.
No, I guess it's not.
Next question, operator.
The next one comes.
Hello, sorry about that, I was in here. My question is just in general for the Northern Alberta. We have a lot of rural school systems in the area that are in desperate need of some modernization. I'm wondering, is there any plan to come up here in the northern parts of the rural communities in this new action plan?
Well, absolutely. I'll let Minister Dirk speak to that. But I mean, these schools are province-wide, and many of them are in Northern Alberta. And we have a map here that I think makes the case in terms of where they are being constructed. Mr. Dirks?
I think this map gives a very clear visual of the extent of the new school build and the modernizations that are taking place across the province. I was actually quite astonished to see this. I hadn't seen this until fairly recently, and it really shows a remarkable commitment to the full province. North, south, urban, rural, metro, everybody's included in this. And what this does not show is, this doesn't show the infrastructure maintenance and renewal money, which is going to every school board across the province. That's going to get a bump this year and a significant bump next year over what they were budgeted this year. So these are the new schools and the modernizations that are taking place. And we definitely have a commitment to the full province.
James?
Sir, I just wanted to clarify, and I apologize if I missed this before, what is the total budget for the new projects announced today? What is the estimated cost for the new schools and modernizations?
You know, one of the things, to be quite honest with you, that I'm looking to see how we can do a little bit more innovatively in government is we often come out and we say, here's our budget for school X. And so when I'm looking to see what effect that has on the tendering process. That's really something I want to see. I want to see if we come out, and our Minister of Finance is very committed to this as well, if we come out and say we have $20 million for School X, I really want to see if all the bids come right close to $20 million. So the overall cost of this project will be about $2 billion. This is a very significant investment. This is an investment that added with our existing commitments and the projects that are under works ends up being the largest infrastructure build in the province, as the Premier has mentioned. And as Minister Dirks has mentioned, the $100 million investment into the upkeep of our schools is doubling the budget for the upkeep of our schools for major infrastructure renewal.
Does this fit into the existing capital budget, or is there going to have to be money either added into the existing capital budget or redirected from projects that are already earmarked to receive funding?
Cabinet is in the process of evaluating the existing capital plan, reevaluating that plan in light of priorities. We've begun with the school requirements and the school priorities, as I said we would.
Last question.
Or is it I mean, 55 new schools or additions, so how does that break down? Like, how many new schools will there be? How many are going to be additions?
Which are you speaking of phase 3?
Phase 3. 55.
Phase 3 is 55 new builds and 20 modernizations.
But it says it, or additions.
Yes, there's one or two additions in there, I believe. I can get you the exact number. Okay.
They're essentially in the modernization category, though,
We have
right?
a list.
These are schools that are being modernized and added onto at the same time.
55 and 20.
Okay, thank you.
Can we switch topics for a second, Premier? And the Wild Rose announced today that they want the government to put $200 million immediately into efforts to bolster long-term care and into emergency room services. I guess, how close are you to making a decision? Do you think, does the system need an immediate injection of funds used to reopen wards, things like that? Will we be seeing something like that coming from the government?
You will hear a great deal about that very shortly. Minister Mandel will be speaking to that, and I'll address that when I'm on a stage with him.
Dr. Paul Parks said that you and neither you nor Minister Mandel was available to talk to him, and he couldn't get meetings with you. Would you care to comment on that?
Well, I'm certainly available to meet with the doctor, and I'm not aware that he has approached me since I became the Premier. There was some communications between he and my campaign team over the summer, but I'm not aware that he has approached me since that time. But I've made it very clear that I do want to sit down with him, and I know that he and Minister Mandel have been trying to match up their schedule to sit down. He and I have spoken about that, and I'm certainly interested in hearing his perspective when he's available and prepared to sit down with me.
That you and Minister Mandel have talked about that, not you and Dr. Parks?
Correct. Minister Mandel and I have talked about the importance of sitting down with him, and we each will do that. We'll do that as soon as he's available.
It doesn't seem as if you folks won't meet with him.
I'm readily available, and as soon as I read that in the Calgary Herald, I instructed my staff to ensure that we had a meeting set up as quickly as possible. I inquired of Minister Mandel, and he is similarly trying to set meetings up at this point in time. So I look forward to the discussion.
Last question is coming from the phone. Thank you. Operator, can you put that caller through?
The next one is from Miriam Seaman from the Edmonton Journal. Your line is open.
Hi, thanks. Mr. Premier, or one of the ministers perhaps, just in terms of this new commitment, what sort of work has been done to determine whether there's the capacity within the construction industry? And I apologize because it's been asked already, but, is there the capacity within the province to actually complete this amount of projects in the timeline that you put forward today?
That's a great question. One of the reasons why the Premier wants us to move quickly and swiftly on the planning of these schools is so that we can ensure that we work very closely with industry to get this work done. Alberta is growing in leaps and bounds. I mean, so far this year in the city of Calgary alone, I believe nearly $6 billion in building permits have been issued. That was 6.1 billion was the number in all of last year. So we know there's a lot of construction work taking place, but working within our committee, we are going to find some very unique ways to procure these schools so that we can engage a wide spectrum of the construction industry and perhaps engage companies and players that have been unable to participate in this type of work in the past. So the long answer is yes, and the short answer is absolutely we're going to make this happen.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
The map seems to indicate 19 news in Calgary and about 9 in Edmonton.
We're happy to talk about that. It's not the case. You know, look at the list of the 230 projects. The maps are attempt to depict it, but that's a lot of information on a small map. Look at the list of the 230 projects, and you'll find that that's not correct.